I am super happy to have connected with Pacharee in Bangkok and to have more ladies coming to share their experience and their resilience stories. I just want to ask you, can you introduce yourself just very briefly and tell us what it meant to you to move to Asia?
Hi, everybody. Pacharee Pantoomano. A little bit about me. I have had both a corporate background in the beginning because I think when you're young, that's what your parents tell you is, the meaning of success, and that's the direction you go. And then later on, I became an entrepreneur, and right now I'm a serial entrepreneur. Started the first company in 2003 called Be Now, which stood for a Bangkok Network of Women. And actually, I was still in corporate at the time, but it was just Be Now is, you know, the the auntie, I guess, to GPW and We Can and LOS and the We Women network. So I ran that basically from 2003 to 2018 while still maintaining a corporate life. And then I started my entrepreneurship journey in 2008 with the launch of Brand.Asia. And then I did it for a few months and I brought in a business partner. And then we worked together basically into 2018. Hence, when I didn't have the partnership anymore, I wasn't able to so much split my time to manage the group that I used to. And so I returned to Thailand in 1997. I thought, as mentioned earlier, I thought, oh, I'll come here from 97 to 2000. And for those of you who are old enough, there was this thing called the Y2K. And they said, because it was the way the computers were programs back in the 70s. So when the calendar turned from 1999 to the 1st of Jan 2000, they said everything was going to break down. So there was this bug in the system. Well, nothing broke down, but I thought, somewhere in 97, 2000, I get there, go back, work in the US, maybe get sent out again, and then, or perhaps even go to a different country. But as you do, I met a guy, fell in love, yeah, got married, had two beautiful kids, and kept building businesses. And then COVID hit. And I think my marriage, uh, like many, because I know of others, um, suffered because it wasn't just a suffering of, oh, all of a sudden we're looking at each other, but I think there was some misalignment that had been happening. You know how they say, like, if you're on a plane and if
Yeah.
that plane is just 1 or 2 degree off, even though that plane trajectory initially was for New York, you end up in Toronto somehow, right? Because it's just that itty bitty, and you just keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, I think that's what happened to us. I thought we were a team, and then I found out when we had a crisis with one of our daughters that we weren't on the same team, and the things that I was asking for, I wasn't receiving. So yeah, we were really off course, and also his ideas of what retirement would be like was so far off to the
Mm.
life that I wanted to live. He has this idea about being on the side of a mountain. He's a bit of a lone wolf. Let me preface that. And as you can hear, I'm a people person. I like to be around other people. Actually, I'm ambivert. I go in and out of wanting to social and then being quiet and focusing on my work. But he wants to be on the side of a mountain, have a goat farm, making goat cheese, this kind of thing, and being like 4 months out of the year or 5 months out of the year if he could stretch it. And that was so far from my idea of what retirement is. I grew up
Mm.
in the Washington, D.C. area, and now I'm in the capital of Thailand. I'm a city person. I like to visit farms every now and again. I love being in nature. Don't get me wrong. I live in the Muban that's like full of trees and flowers and stuff like that, and I love it. But I have see myself being in the cold on the side of a mountain, milking goats.
Oh dear. Yes. And it is such a common thing that I see, especially in relationships where people are ready to compromise because it can get hard to find someone, and they are ready to compromise on who they truly are to fit in somebody's mold or world. And actually, that's the thing. One of the things we were even speaking about previously, this fluctuation. We want to grow as an individual. We want to evolve and develop. And resilience is really about that, how we adapt and adjust to the world around us. But also, there is a part of us that needs to be grounded and aligned for us to truly enjoy that journey. So, going through so many changes, how did you know, especially in a moment like this, how to stay true to yourself? Like, it's not easy to give up on a marriage and the life you had built. And a lot of people might think, well, it's just a little mountain. Maybe we can have two properties and live like here and there.
Yeah.
How did you feel so aligned and settled in making such hard decision that facing the life change?
Well, it wasn't just a misalignment in terms of how we saw ourselves living out in the later life. There was also, we had disagreements around, the kind of being a moral compass to our children. That's when I realized how my values and his values are truly, truly very different. And I would share things about, I was once a young girl. I was once a teenager. So I was once, like miseducated and had to re-educate myself. So I would tell him things, the kind of stuff that I would want support on. So that's where, again, back to the team, because I think in a relationship, you have to be like in a team, and you have to have each other's back. Whereas my take, and perhaps in hindsight he will disagree or agree, I don't know, because we're not really in communication that often anymore. But he he puts the relationship with him and the children above the marriage. So that's why it broke, right? So, but back to your question about resilience, I think life will knock you down. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're, you know, even the current president of the United States. I'm sure life knocks him down, aside from all the bravado and everything that he espouses on TV or Twitter or Truth and his platform. Life will knock you down. Life will knock everybody down. And that's the reality. Whether it's going to knock you down publicly or privately, professionally or personally, I think it will always knock you down. And I don't think anybody leaves this life without getting knocked down. And I remember when I was younger, I think we were talking about people who uses a permanent solution to a temporary problem, if you know what I mean. I remember like a counselor said, there's nothing in life that requires a permanent solution to a temporary problem, because if you live long enough, you will see that as happy as you can be, it doesn't last. As sad as you can be, that also doesn't last. Because life has its own ebb and flow to it, right? There'll be good days, there'll be bad days. And if you could just take that a little bit in stride, and granted, there are some horrific traumas going on, and I don't discredit that. But at the same time, you have to think about your life and what are your intentions. Because you came, I I look at kind of like super big picture, right? The super big picture. The probability of the sperm meeting the egg and you getting born, it's in the millions, isn't it? Or something like astronomical number, right? For you to actually come, like literally become a fetus and born as a live human is such an astronomical, you know, probability that you're put here, and I feel I'm very spiritual. So you came here and you have a divine purpose, and it's part of your life's journey is to find what that is. And initially, I didn't come into my work of what I do. I see myself often as giving structure and amplifying for people. So actually, my bachelor's degree is IR and Econ, which is International Relations and Economics. It was designed for me to go into the Foreign Service or a UN organization or something like WHO. These types of organization, I wanted to get into development work and also travel. I always wanted to come out of the United States for whatever reason. I always wanted to leave and go see the rest of the world. So, but for whatever reason, I kept getting jobs in marketing, Marcom, PR, marketing strategy, communication strategy, and it's been that way, and it's actually fun, you know. But you got to be selective because I've had like vaping companies, casino companies, uh, marriage dating website company. Yes, dating for married people. Come and ask me
Yep.
to.
We heard of them. We heard
Yeah,
of those sites.
it crashed and burned, as you probably heard, right? Yeah, because they had a huge data leak, right? That then their spouse found out, oh, my husband or my wife or whatever was on the dating website. No, but I don't take those jobs. Why? Because I think I mentioned to you, like when I do things out of alignment somehow with myself or my integrity or myself, I get sick. I like physically get sick. I'll get and I would go through like every time I would like be out of alignment, and then I started to see the pattern. And then so I would do experiments with myself and just go, okay, say no, the boundary thing. But the problem is women and Asian women, you know, especially with the whole face saving and the whole harmony and the dutiful thing. Sometimes it's difficult to set those boundaries, right? Like you said, like, oh, you know, I don't want to be on the side of a mountain, but yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, right now, don't knock it down until you try, and so on.
Yeah, so yeah, life will knock you down, and you have to have a grounding. And for me, it's spirituality, it's praying. I'm very grateful that I have a brother who is he teaches meditation. Also, I learned EFT. I've done FCS, family constellations. I know a little bit of interfamily systems. I regularly do EFT. I do breath work. I do Kundalini yoga, and all of these things that I've learned through holistic modalities. I'm building a wellness platform for corporates because I want people to get introduced to these things, because what we have now with the whole epidemic of loneliness and this separation, this sense of like divide between men and women, and you know and so much of the anger and you know the bloodshed also that we're watching in the news. I think it, even if you're not front and center, but if you get exposed to the news,
Yeah,
whether it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes per day, or even if you're just on social media, somebody's going to be talking about it, right?
yeah,
You know, you're experiencing, I call it secondhand trauma, kind of like secondhand smoke. You know, you do feel it. I don't think you can look at something about people getting killed, getting shot, getting bombed, and not feel like there's something wrong. I went to the market this weekend, and I just, you know, the weekend market, and I just asked around at the regular vendors that I usually, you know, buy things from. Say, hey, how is it? And she's like, since the war, the traffic has dropped by a third. You know, the footfall into the market, and I think we're all experiencing this pink elephant in the room, and I don't know who's supposed to talk about it. But I
mm,
find that I'm supposed to do my part, and my part is like I don't. I've done talk therapy in the past for different, you know, like trauma that I was going through when I was younger, and I find like you and I were talking earlier about how it's just re-triggering.
mhm,
You know, when the more you keep talking about it, it's just re-triggering that moment back into your memory, and it doesn't necessarily heal it. So it's kind of like this wound that you just keep putting salt on top,
Mhm.
and it doesn't heal. So, and I found the other alternative, which is the reason why I want people to know about it, because when you don't know about other ways of healing and grounding yourself, you will do other things. You will have addictions, you will become a
Yeah.
bully, you will come, other things, like from sex addiction to alcohol to drugs to everything else, that, and then it will affect your work performance, productivity, your relationship with family and friends and colleagues. And we're back to the situation that I'm talking about, where we're like, it's us versus them. It's, we're still in this divide. And I think that's, I don't know, I feel in me that somehow it's wrong. That's not who we're supposed to be.
It is such an on point with what's going on in the world today. And the thing is, I've had this conversation actually recently with someone, is how can we not expect to be at war in the world and with others when we are constantly at war with ourselves?
Hmm.
And this friction that we have in, within our own wounds, within trying to fix something, constantly being in a fight or a survival mode, these this difficulty to hold both polarities of, we can be in a certain situation and hold the pain and the happiness and the joy. We can hold the grief and we can hold the gratitude. We can, and it's something that our brains cannot always comprehend, especially when we come from a wounded place. So
Hmm.
there is like this fight that's happening within, trying to understand, the why. Oh, why life is so hard, but nobody told you it was supposed to be easy. Who put this idea in your head? And I think this what's happening in the world is a big metaphor of this turmoil that every single one of us might face at some point in our life. So I was wondering if you've had perhaps some non-negotiables that lay the foundation for you in the relationships that you have with yourself. What are
Ooh.
like your non-negotiables to be, to really be able to spot through all these life changes, how you constantly show up for
I think the non-negotiables are different for everybody, and I think you arrive at it after you go through an ego death. You really, there's a death that it happens to you while you're alive, because when we're growing up, we're told we're this, we're this, we're this, we're this, whatever programming has been put into you, you know, that's, like, whether it's like saying something about, oh, our family tradition, we do like this, like all the girls in our family always da 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 da, whatever. I think you have to let all of it die. And then when you allow those beliefs, and that's a very hard thing, because people, live and die on that identity in which they have forged. And then to say that you're going to let that go and let it die, just like me in the divorce, coming to terms like, who am I if I'm not his wife? Who am I if I'm not with my children every day? And now
you.
there's this like co-parenting, joint custody stuff. And this is, my situation is not exceptional. Many people are living that. Some do it better than others. Some do it angrily. Some do it begrudgingly. Um, I think you have to let those things die, and then your let you come out as to what is okay with me and what's not okay with me. And we have to let go of the idea of, when we set boundaries, that it's going to hurt other people. No, actually, I feel clarity is kindness. You know what I mean? Like when you say, this is not okay, I don't accept this, then you have clarity. So people know now, like, no, this is not, yeah, like, don't do that with her, because she doesn't accept this. and other people can do it too with me, but not, like it's not a tit for tat, right? Like it just kind of comes up organically as well as you explore your relationship, whether that's in a professional workplace or in a friendship. Um, I've had to tell friends that, like, the way that you behave with me is not okay, and I don't want to have this kind of situationship with you where I have to repeat myself. And it was unfortunate. It was like long time relationships too, but I feel that she was going through something, and that's fine. And I also, at the time, the story I'm telling you about a little bit is also, my father had just died. So I was really sensitive at the time. And it was like, don't put anything on me at the moment. Like, I'm just, I'm just trying to, like, keep my head above the water. You know? Don't make it worse for me, right? Kind of.
I can definitely relate, and I'm very certain a lot of people in the audience would relate to that. The fact that sometimes you do not have the capacity to show up for others at all time because you also have something, and there is this thing that this preconceived idea or conditioning that is like, oh no, you have to give or you have to show up, and this guilt can trap you into a loop that is making things even worse, because you showing up half-assed is not going to help anyone. It's not going to help them. It's going to make you feel more sick of it, and it's just creating unnecessary resentment, as opposed to being able to say, you know what, let's put a pin on this, let's pause that and take the space to refill our capacity to welcome this relationship as it could be. And it can be something as well with your clients. I'm assuming that we always talk about relationships like it's only personal or it's only dating and in love, but relationships are the things that we manage every day, and our
Mm.
customers are some of them. Like sometimes you have to set boundaries with your clients as well. How
Mm.
do you make sure that your core pillars and your core values are always like at the forefront in every area of life?
I work at being as authentic and as transparent as possible. And I have it, like, because you were talking in the context of with the client, right? So I I have it on my website, and when I present the company, when I, my credentials and things like that, I talk about it, and I talk about how we live our values, like literally. And I don't just have this conversation with clients, I have it internally, because I think your inner world creates your outer world, right? So if your inner world isn't solid and clear, it will come out, the way that it comes out. And then you, it's kind of like the Jungian, Carl Jung. Like, if you don't become conscious of the unconscious, you would just call it fate or destiny, because you're not looking into what patterns you are contributing to, what's happening in your life. Because there's a law of physics here. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So there's a kinetic energy that's always happening. So you are affecting your life. And it's like, you can see it as like life is happening to you, or it's like life is happening for you. And if you see life is happening for you, I think then you're really intentional. And when you set those intentions, like I'll go into meetings, whether it's social, or well, like, hey, I'm looking forward to, like, later I have a meetup, right? So I sent a quick message to just say, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you later. And and I designated this place and time because he was waiting for me to say something about it, because he wanted to know when was my last meeting, right? Because he said his last meeting was a little bit earlier than mine. So I think when you have intention and you make your intentions clear to other people, I think that really helps. But I feel, I don't know how many of your followers are women, but I feel sometimes women feel a little bit shy about, you know, being so forthcoming or so intentional. But then there's an opposite of that, right? There are some women who are often functioning in their masculine energy.
Mhm.
I find myself sometimes too much in that world. So because I am the boss, right? I'm the boss. I have, a couple companies, and it's like when you, and then when you don't have to be, that's what I mean. Like you have to be intentional. You have to like talk to yourself. And for those who haven't had a parent say that to you, you can reparent yourself by just having that little internal dialogue. Like, okay, I'm going into this meeting, or I'm at a family social now, or I'm on a date now, and I'm just, you know, just do something. If you need to like do the box breathing and say, okay, I'm going to box breathing a few times to take this armor off so I can come into my feminine. We were talking earlier about the masculine and feminine. I think that's one of the things that's kind of like gone by the wayside is the polarity. Women often, too often, in their masculine energy, over functioning, too much emotional labor. It's like step back, give him space. Let him fall. Let him step up into his divine masculine and
Mhm.
allow. And there's but surrender. But you set your boundaries. You've already cleared your intentions with this person, and give space.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? Because I remember when I started this work around resilience, there was this massive preconceived idea that resilience was in the fight. And it's like this hustle culture and constantly, going after things and standing strong. And actually, the most beautiful reveal that has happened for me was to see that actually resilience took a hell lot of love and self-love and softness and
Mm,
vulnerability, and it just made the work richer, and it
mm,
makes the impact richer, whether it's for corporations, for companies, for people, for personal relationships, for professional relationships. And of course, there's this education of knowing, how to hold both. When do
yeah,
you need to harden?
yeah.
When do you need to be stricter? And when you can surrender? And of course, where you have your responsibility, and when you need to stop trying to control everything. So this is part of this polarity.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
with,
agree.
with that in mind, I'm wondering, and I know that we're getting to the end of the live, I just want to leave the audience with some final thoughts on no matter what had happened, you're not necessarily defined by your past,
Yeah.
but just how you are who you are. But what is a part of yourself that makes you feel confident for the future, no matter what
Mhm.
it has in store for you?
You know, we're always like sometimes too forward facing, and we're always thinking. I think that's what causes a lot of anxiety in people, right?
Mhm.
Because we're like
Live in the
we
future.
live, yeah, we living in the future, and we make everything worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's the worst yeah, it could. That could be one of the thing that happened. But if you're always living in that and not somehow here also be in the present and being grateful and having gratitude that I have a house I live in, I well fed, able to aspire, and on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, like I'm on the verge of self actualization. Like we don't look at like how far we've come.
Hmm.
From the days that you were itty bitty baby to learning to walk and finishing primary, secondary, and then for those who chose to go to college, or those who decided to become a chef or whatever, different vocations that we've chosen. Yeah, I feel don't be so far ahead and think of everything so worst case scenario. Stop every now and again and appreciate yourself first, because I think we spend a bit too much time like very external, like thinking everything lives outside of us, but actually it starts here. And I think that's the good and the bad of ego death. It's like then you realize like, oh, I made all this up. Yes, you did. And you can redo it again, and that's a good part. I think just loving yourself and knowing that you succeeded in exams, you failed at exams, you had a love interest, you were in love, but then it broke apart, and then you had another love interest, and it's just a journey, really, right? And you try to have the best journey possible. And I think the way to do that is like be intentional and be clear with you. One of the exercises, and I don't know if your viewers would enjoy doing, I think about death a lot. I know it's going to sound a little bit morbid, but my younger brother, I do. I think about it every day. I wake up and I go, oh, I get to breathe today. Okay, excellent. um, my younger brother, no, my older brother, I'm the middle child. And they say the middle child, they're always slightly a little bit weird, right? So my younger brother had a car accident. He passed away in 1986. That was a thing I talked about, doing the talk therapy thing, because the whole family went through a form of trauma. And I cried rivers for the longest time. And then finally the therapist said to me, until you change the story in your mind and how you perceive it, you'll be stuck here. So where do you want to reframe this? Like, and my reframing was that I love my younger brother, and he didn't get to sing his song because he was 11 and I was 16 at the time when this happened. And I think about the song I want to sing. So sometimes I do get into a little bit of that hustle and a bit of that rat race, because I feel like there's just so much I want to do. And I feel very blessed and grateful that I have, the brains and the resources that is able to put those things together. So that's why I wake up, okay, I get to breathe again. Yeah, okay, let's go for it. And then the other thing that I mentioned to your viewer that I want them to do this exercise is write your eulogy. Now, for those of you who have not heard this word, because it's very specialized, eulogy is the speech that's delivered at your funeral by a loved one, whoever that survives you. I recently went to a friend's funeral. He had a heart attack this last week, and his brother delivered his eulogy. And I thought, wow, what a beautiful eulogy. And he recounted his brother's life and all the wonderful things he did, and how he survived by his wife and his two children, and his career from starting out like very small, doing like a salesman for diamond cutting and stuff like that, to running the factory for Swarovski, and then retiring and writing his book about him looking for his friends in the tsunami, and he found them. Of course, they were already deceased, but going, like morgue after morgue looking for them, because he couldn't rest until he was able to find them and lay them to their last. And just the stories that came out of that. So, I think, why don't we live it backwards? Like, what stories do you want your loved ones to talk about and tell about you at the end of your life as they celebrate your life? And I think, then once you've said that, then okay, I've got to go. But don't think about all the little things, like, oh, this could happen. This could, delay is not defeat.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true, and it is so, so, so powerful. I am so grateful and so blessed that I get this space to share as well with others, collecting the wisdom of beautiful people like you and everyone in the audience who is either watching us live or watching the recording. Thank you. And please get in touch with Pacharee. She's on LinkedIn. She'll be there. Go check out her work. She does amazing things. And I'll put the links in the description of the YouTube video anyway, so you'll have everything to find her and stay in touch and share your own resilience story in the comments.